Welcome back to the Kerbal Space Program. Here we sit today with Jebediah back in the pilot seat. Our mission is going to be to land on the moon, basically a repeat of our last mission. However, instead of missing the moon and having to land on a different celestial body, we're actually going to go ahead and land on the moon, I hope. Our mission, of course, will be to take more samples, do more science, and also make sure that we leave evidence of where we have landed on the moon, not just broken hopes and dreams. So, without further ado, we shall get underway in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. My timing a little off with that countdown, and I do apologize for that. My natural rhythms must just be slightly out of sync. I know a lot of you will be disappointed in that. You come here for the countdowns, and regrettably I don't even deliver them to you every time. So I would like to just apologize for that. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about our space program here while we have some time. This marks our 21st day exploring the solar system. Jebediah, of course, having been involved in about 20 days worth of those missions, either on his way to other celestial bodies, strapped in a rocket, flying around the planet, or even just hopping into a rocket to take trips across the continent where he easily could have gotten with a bus ticket. But that's just that's not the way we do things here. We're here for science and as much rocket science as we can do. Coming up here on the separation of our main solid boosters. They're away, main liquid engines are a go. One thing I noticed while doing these videos is that I enjoy the extra challenge of it, putting everything out there, the anxiety that comes from landing on a body or trying out something I haven't done before. But at the same time, I find myself wanting to be at least somewhat entertaining, and I know I probably fail on that on a lot of instances. But I don't do the number of test flights I do or have done in the past. Which is one of the reasons why we've stuck with basically one rocket design and just minor tweaks. So that way there, the risk to losing my poor guys is a lot less. Now, I also notice that I try to make these videos flow as fast as I can. And to those of you who have watched a lot of these hour-long videos, my heart goes out to you. I know it doesn't look like I'm trying to increase the flow at all. But I find that I don't do as many parking orbits. I try to speed through maneuver nodes instead of meticulously trying to find out which one works best. And I feel like I should be getting better, especially with how long I've been playing the game. And yet I keep finding myself making simple mistakes. Things like missing nodes because I'm fast forwarding through them. Or just quickly setting up nodes in front of me, like with a minute left to burn. Mission plans that just kind of come out of nowhere, which of course wasn't my intent when I started these videos. I wanted to do it NASA-esque of very much, this is what we're going to do, and if for some reason we failed at that, just try to recover the rocket. But I believe it was my first mistake that I made when we went ahead and changed the mission profile that I realized if I would have aborted that mission, it would have just been a waste of any form of video, as well as a waste of anything that we were funding. So I've been trying to do it more off the cuff, more in the spirit of the game with those quick changes and exhilarating life or death last minute decisions. And missing maneuvers, things like that. With that said, I don't really remember why I started this tangent, but I'm assuming it was just to kill time, because this part we have done so many times, it must be pretty boring to watch. But you know, that's kind of the way it goes. I've thought about editing these videos down to cut out things that we see all the time, or some of the long flights, or stuff like that. But at the same time, that would kind of defeat the purpose, because if I could edit any of the videos, then what's to say that I didn't have a crash somewhere, or I didn't make multiple attempts at doing something, or anything like that. I like the idea that these are all just what you see is what actually happened. There's nothing going on behind the scenes. The closest thing that has gone on behind the scenes is I did try to design a rocket close to one that I had built in another game. I put it together and I threw it into the saved ships folder, only to find out that I don't have the research tech for it yet. So, but I don't think that that really constitutes as anything going south. I also don't show me building rockets, because if you think some of these, me trying to plan a maneuver, is me not talking for a long period of time and just boring, then you should see some of these rocket designs I do. They look pretty simple, I admit, but I do really try to balance out their function with all of the components, try to keep my part count down, try to make them as versatile as possible. And that sometimes goes very quickly, and other times there is a lot of me just staring at the screen thinking, so I try to spare you from that. Coming up on our midway burn here, so that we can establish an orbit. We want to be careful. I will go ahead and deploy our solar panels. We want to be careful here. I want to try to ditch my boosters before we get into a full orbit, so that way they're not stuck up here forever. So I just need to balance how much fuel they have left versus how much of an arc I've got going on. Wish you could see both of those things at the same time. Here, and that means I have flamed out, so we'll go ahead and separate. I believe that was at about 40, 48, so that should be good. Get that up to about 70. And there we go. Let's go ahead and get rid of this thing. Where is our moon here? Now again, since we're going 90 degrees, we want to wait for when the moon rises to start our burn here. And given the state of things, it looks like the moon's going to rise right after our periapsis. So we'll go ahead and throw a burn in, just so that I can get my position here. I must say, having the maneuver nodes is such a different experience than when I first started playing the game. There was a lot of, well, I mean, I knew nothing about orbital mechanics, really. As interested as I was in the space program, orbital mechanics just isn't something you tend to dive into as a child. So my knowledge of it was rudimentary at best, and then to jump into this game and be like, oh, what happens if I fire my thrusters here, or do this or do that, and not really knowing any of the consequences of your actions was pretty rough. You made rockets that had a lot of extra fuel and would bounce between prograde and retrograde, trying to get your collisions just right. Whereas now you can kind of do that using the planner. Instead, everything I'm doing right now would be a different burn of me flipping the craft around. Uh, 800 brings me to 327. 327, I'm a little below it, so I'll bring ourselves up. And 115. If we accelerate, that goes to 69. Accelerate, that should bring us into a collision. I'm sorry, I don't like to use the word collision. Into an intercept. We'll go ahead, bring ourselves down. Now we're going to try to land in one of the craters for this mission. I know that from the angle I was just looking at, the polar crater seems like it's going to be a no-go, but possibly the far side crater, possibly the northwest crater, could be potential targets. And we also would like to try to land and not lay down on our side. That would be pretty sweet too. Alright. At 20 seconds we'll start that burn. There we can see our boosters falling back into the planet, which is a good thing. Another 400 meters per second to change. Moon still hasn't risen. There it is. So that's normally when I would have started my burn if I was looking to get into an orbit instead of an intercept. That's actually looking pretty good right there. So we're not going to waste the extra bit of fuel. That said, let's go ahead and get there. Although the map is not as entertaining to watch as the ship floating in space, although oddly enough you can see more movement this way. It's just so much easier to not miss your transitions. I mean, I realize that the camera always snaps when you go from one transition to another, but when you're accelerated to 1,000 times the speed, you don't always notice that kind of stuff. Or if you do, it sometimes takes a little longer to react. Now we've got an option for 2 landing sites here. We could go to this crater very easily, or we could go to this crater very easily. I'm going to try for the one on the face. One, it's going to be more of a direct route with where we're at, so we're not going to have to worry about as much of the curvature of the moon. And likewise, it will definitely be lit up no matter how long this takes us. So, that said, we want to aim for the center of the crater, and we'll probably have to make one more adjustment as the moon spins underneath us. But that looks pretty good there. To execute that in 6 minutes. .37 meters per second, not much. And that will make it so that in 47 minutes we will come in contact with the moon, which at least that's, shows that we're committed, as opposed to, yes, we're cutting about a half hour off of our landing, which is good. You don't want Jebediah up there just thinking about landing on the moon. He's a doer. That should do it. Looking pretty good there. We're going to go ahead and actually we're going to keep the craft facing the same way for right now, in case we do have to make an adjustment as we get closer to the surface. Although I do like that it is telling me that that I will survive this and make it back around. It's very, very encouraging of it. Okay, that said, we're actually going to flip ourselves around here. We're going to burn a little bit retrograde, and we're going to burn a little bit this way. The retrograde is just to start bleeding off some of this. There we go. Alright, that should be the last positional burn that we do. It looks like with the rotation of the moon, our landing site is coming this way, but I don't think it's going to reach the edge of that crater by the time we get there. So that's good. So we should land somewhere around here where the light meets the dark. This is where we start to go tense, knowing what is to come, praying to anyone who will listen that we touch down with our landing gear and not the side of our ship. Now we are in space near. Okay. We got a fair amount of fuel here, so we're going to burn that to kill off some of this speed. Well, hopefully kill off a lot of this speed. Lost about 400 meters per second with that, which I'm happy with. Let's go ahead See if I can't get a nice report off of this. The Northwest Crater, done. Let's get back on board. Let's go ahead and retract those solar panels. Let's go ahead and drop our landing gear. At 20 kilometers, we're going to go ahead and fire the last of our main engine. And we'll say 18. 300 meters per second. All right. Looks like we are still heading for these slopes. Uh, 6 kilometers, I think, will be the next one. She'll put us about 4 kilometers above the surface. A little too much there. Much too much there. It looks like we're actually set up for a relatively flat area, which is good. Wait for the wreckage. So you get about 500 meters. Bracing for impact. No, 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 no! Ah, this lander is too tall. I'm sure it's possible, but I can't wait until I have enough science to build the squat lander that I really like to use so that I can stop doing this. But, you know, we have landed, and one way or another we have landed. And so we shall take this moment to sigh a breath of relief that at least we're alive. Take our crew report. Let's go ahead and get our goo sample. Let's go ahead and grab our material bay. Let's grab our thermometer reading. Alright, we'll step out to do our second EVA upon the moon. Let's go ahead and take our surface sample from the moon's northwest crater. Let's do an EVA report. You start to say something dramatic and poignant about the plight of Kerbal kind in this grand universe, only to be cut off by a random radio chatter that the situation is nominal. So we'll go off over here. We shall plant our flag. A little sad that what was an emergency situation on our first flight, that is falling over sideways on the moon, became, yeah, I don't know why I did that. I normally like to use my RCS pack anyhow. What was an emergency situation of us falling over on our first landing has since somehow become just business as usual. We miss the moon. We land on another body. We do so by flopping over onto our side. Part of me wants to just start putting a landing gear on the nose there. If that's the way I'm gonna fall over, you know, that might as well be. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Not what I wanted. At least then it could be part of our design if that's going to truly be the way that we decide to land constantly. Alright, so what we want to do is actually, I'd like to be pointed in that direction, but this is more of a slope than I was anticipating. So we're going to go ahead and try to stand ourselves up. Now if I could do that, but the other way, that would be great. Now, let's go ahead and just retract all of our gear. Let's go ahead and try that again. This time we'll angle downward. That's a pretty good launch platform we have there. Of course, I'm upside down, so my controls are going to be backwards, which means that to pitch up, I'm going to use... Alright. So, here we are, majestic, ready to go. Take a picture for posterity. Jebediah smiling contently. What are we rocking for fuel? 7/9 in that one. This one should be full. Plenty of monopropellant. I haven't used any. So we should be in good shape to do our standard moon retreat here. So with that said, let's get underway. Kind of a weird angle to start. Now, it is a good thing that I decided to put these extended solar panels on my rocket my first time instead of keeping the flat panels, because yeah, let's face it, that would not work if I still had flat panels on. But perhaps if this is the way we're going to keep landing, we can move this stuff, battery down here, antenna off to the side, and put our landing leg right there. Uh, 365 is going to be the amount that I need. We're going to do this burn in a couple of stages to save fuel. We're going to do like 100 meters per second, and then wait till we get to our new apoapsis, then do 100 meters per second, wait till we get to our new apoapsis, that kind of deal. If we'll remember, 45 units of fuel is how much I had the last time to get out of here. 21. So this will be a tight orbit, but it will be an orbit. And I'll still have a fair amount of fuel left to figure out how to get home. Jebediah doing his happy dance, which we learned a few flights ago is not his good luck dance. It was a shame to get those two confused. So that should establish us in an orbit, and it did. So good show with that. Kind of an oblong orbit, not exactly what we would hope for, but that's okay. 198 this time. Now we want to try to shift it so that our apoapsis isn't so close to the moon's trajectory, because otherwise the moon will try to recapture us, which is always not fun. Although that said, I think we're just going to deal with it. That right there looks pretty good. 8 hours away, 23 hours. Get up there, burn. So that should be our plan. 15 hours from now. Now, part of me would really like to do some EVAs and try to rack up anything interesting we go over. But at the same time, I know that doing so cancels out our maneuver node, and I don't see any big features that we're going to be crossing over. So I'm not going to risk it. Lined up here. And let's go ahead. 10 minutes. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Slow down, get back on the dot here. A minute and a half. Let's go ahead, turn our RCS thrusters on, and let's use it. We didn't use any of our monopropellant to actually land or take off this time. So we should actually have enough to do this entire maneuver without firing up our engines, which will give us plenty of fuel in order to get back home. And in the terrible, terrible, terrible instance that we are recaptured by the moon, hopefully it will give us enough to get home. That said, doing this kind of a deal, I might actually have been better off traveling at 270 to go home. But I'm not entirely convinced of that, and it's not like I have a wealth of extra fuel to explore that option. Halfway there, a little more than half of our fuel used, so we might still have to fire up our engines. Jebediah still very excited. "11 units left, 30 meters per second to go." now spent more than my burn by 7 meters per second, but that's alright. I mean, it's not like I could not spend it. For fuel, we still have 65 units left, so let's go home. I don't know what the hell that thing is, but that is not something we want to happen. So I don't know if we need to slow ourselves down to avoid that. Nope. Speed ourselves up to avoid that. Yep. Because that's just death. Just plain and simple death. So it'll take 45. It's just crazy looking. So that's going to stink for us. 42. What happens if I just try to go up and avoid it? If I do the same 42, I should still be able to then slow down. We're gonna try that route instead here. This craft, of course, so much more maneuverable than it was when we still had that booster attached. So here we go, trying not to get recaptured by the moon. We're going to give it that little extra just to make sure that the computer doesn't throw me any surprises. Now if all goes well, we're going to use this to burn our way back to Kerbin. And go home. I like to aim for about 30 kilometers. That way there we're not slamming so terribly into the ground. But at the same time, one pass will put us in. Okay. Now we'll keep an eye to make sure that the moon does not recapture us. I do like, as I said earlier, playing in the other view, but in a situation like this, if I'm in the other view, I won't necessarily know that the moon is going to capture me until it captures me, and at which point I do not have nearly enough fuel to get out of that situation. We're just going to slow down because I really don't want to have to screw this burn up. That would be really bad. And ready to retrograde. And in 12 minutes, we shall burn. There we go. Full engines. The moon ominously creeping up on us. Very, very ominously creeping up on us. 2 million. 1 million. $400,000, 200,000, 150,000, 179, 70, 60, 50, 40. We'll call it 33. What do I have left for fuel? 26 units, just less than a third. My altitude right now is 11. Still, oddly enough, about the same as the moon. But I should be far enough above that that's... Oh, you suck. Alright, see, we've been recaptured a little bit. We will escape, and it will put us another 583 away. So that's another reason why you don't blow all of your fuel in one maneuver. Because had I would just be, I'd be dead now if it had recaptured me. So currently at 500, I really don't want to have to go around again. 300, 250, 168, 90, 32. Oi. I'm assuming the earlier I do that, the better. 6. 28, close enough. So give us 80 meters per second. Took 4 units of fuel, so we should have 18 units of fuel left. When the camera rotated like that, I thought for an instant I had been recaptured, and the twang, I'm gonna go with twinge of fear that overtook me was quite a bit. So we are going to fall back into Kerbin. We are going to be going very fast when we come up on Kerbin. We don't have a lot of fuel to bleed off that speed, but we're going to do everything we can to make sure that Jebediah comes home safe. "15 minutes until we hit 10, 8, 7. Let's go ahead and pull in our solar panels. Oh good, we're going to be landing at night. That's exactly what I wanted. That's an absolute lie. It's just one more stressor. We're doing 3,200 meters per second in our orbit here. Not the most we've done, but certainly a lot. It looks like we will be landing in the water. with that. The reason for doing that, one, is Mission Control still doesn't know that we even landed, which is awfully nice. But if we land in the water, I know that I am missing a crew report from the water, and I don't want to have a repeat of our Minmus incident of overwriting a off-world experiment with an on-world experiment, especially where I had extra thermometers. That was just absolutely stupid. Still upset about that. We have been on fire for a while now. We're down to 20 kilometers. We've been on fire for a very long while now. It's hard to believe there are people alive in here, and by people I mean Jeb. Coming up to that magical point at 12 kilometers where the atmosphere thins out. We're still on fire. It's pretty remarkable to me. I don't know that I've ever been on fire this long. Atmosphere will thin out. We're still doing over 800 meters a second. We're just cooking. Though it looks like we might be in for a land landing. It's hard to see what the heck's below us. We're going to drop our landing gear regardless. We're still slowing down thanks to all the wind resistance. Fire what's left of our rockets. A little bit more that we will fire when we're just a hair closer. Just so that our parachutes, because we did take off our top chute, and I just don't want to have any accidents. Three kilometers, we drop our chutes. Oh, we're over grasslands. I believe we have everything we can get from our grasslands. Traveling at 90 meters per second. Whoa, that was a lot of G's. That was a lot of G's. I am not gonna physics warp for this segment here. Normally I do, but I just got that feeling like something terrible will happen. So we're just gonna have to bear with it. A well-designed craft. We didn't even need our ladder to land on the moon. I can't believe that's the standard procedure for us right now. We will be landing with a mission time of less than 1 day. So 2 orbital bodies in a day. It's going to be a lot for the system to take, but Jebediah, he's never shied away as we close out our 21st day of space exploration. Bum ba dum ba da 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 dum bum ba dum ba da 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 dum bum 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 ba da 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 dum ba dum bum 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 ba da dum ba da dum ba da dum bum 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 ba da dum bum 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 bum. For not for nothing, but for a second I thought we were about to fall over, and all I could think was that in the enhanced gravity of the planet, the ship would explode, and what a terrible way to go that would have been. So we'll recover this vessel. We've got our 7 experiments, 353 science earned. Quick recap here. EVA from the Northwest Crater is 24. Surface sample from the Moon, 120. EVA report from the Moon, 32. Temperature scan, 32. Material study, 100. Mystery goo is 40. Recovery of a vessel from the surface, down to just 5 science. So, yeah, that was a successful mission. We did everything we wanted to do except for not falling over on the Moon. But that's bound to happen to even the best of pilots 3 times in a row. So, without further ado, we'll close this one out in under an hour. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.